Yo guys, what's going on? I'm Timmy's KJ. This is Cash Going AC Sports Report. NBA lockout obviously ended yesterday. You got my thoughts, Bruce Blitz yesterday. Me and KJ now are going to go in on our basically our NBA season predictions. Tomorrow on Tuesday, I think Thomann's going to make his return. He's going to do his NBA stuff. So we're going to give you hardcore NBA talk throughout this entire season, from LeBron, Kobe, Dwight Howard, Derrick Rose, Dirk Nowitzki, everybody, every team will be here. We're going to start slow, work our way up to the NBA Finals and the MVP pick. First of all, what teams do you look at as sleepers this year?
As a sleeper this year, I'm going to go with Golden State as my sleeper. I mean, right now they have Ellis and they have Stephen Curry, so those are two really good players. I think they're going to have breakout season this year. If Ellis stays with the team, we don't think that's going to happen, but if he does, that's going to be a very good, hard-to-stop team.
Yeah, and if they get Andre Iguodala, I mean, I don't like Andre Iguodala at all, and he's a terrible offensive player, but he plays great defense, so he certainly does bring something to a team. For me, I have two teams. The Portland Trail Blazers were not that far off from beating the Mavericks, who ultimately smoked the Lakers and then beat the Heat along with beating the Thunder. So if they were that close, well, they could make a run as long as Brandon Roy is able to stay healthy this season. And then Indiana really gave Chicago a run in a lot of those games in that series last year. Tyler Hansbrough, Roy Hibbert, Danny Granger. It's possible. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I could see something. Now, players to watch or breakout, who do you see?
Players to watch, I have Monte Ellis, like I said before. I think he's a really versatile player. I think he's going to have a breakout season this year. He's a great shooter. He can throw the ball down real well. He's more of a kind of not team guy, but I think he's really going to have a breakout season. My next guy is going to be Brandon Roy. He had trouble last year with his knees, and I think he's really... He got to rest a lot with this whole lockout, and I think he's going to come back healthy. And if he can stay healthy, I think he's going to have a great season. I think he's going to be strong. I think he's going to be the old Brandon Roy you guys are used to seeing.
Yeah, that's one of the best point guards in the NBA. The thing with who'd you say before Brandon Roy? Monte Ellis. Yeah, he's a decent shooter. He's got to become more consistent. That's been his problem. For me, I'm going to go the homer pick first. Drew Holiday, point guard of the Sixers. He's going to become the ultimate leader of this team because Andre Iguodala is going to be traded with new ownership finally and a new GM. We're going to see what happens, but I think he will be traded. Drew Holiday's been one of the best young point guards. He's still only 21 years old out of UCLA. He's a good scorer. I mean, he's not going to be Derrick Rose or Chris Paul or Darren Williams, but he can give you 15 to 17 points a game. He runs this team well, and I think he's a good cornerstone to help build this team around. I also like Chris Humphries. Obviously, we know what Chris Humphries is most famous for, being married to Kim Kardashian for about 10 minutes, but I liked what I saw out of him. He's been around the league, but he averaged like 14 points a game last year with like 10 rebounds, so I think he could have a big year this year. Rookie of the year, who you got?
I got Rookie of the Year. I got to go with my boy Kemba from UConn. I mean, it's going to be hard for these rookies to come into a team, and I think because of the lockout and not being able to practice and missing all the offseason and jumping right into things, but I think that the most talented and best player to jump in right away will be Kemba. He'll probably be in the starting five, if not sixth man. I think he's definitely going to be the best player out of all this rookie class. I really think that.
Yeah, the Bobcats have had trouble making money, so expect them to kind of market someone like Kemba quite a bit. Derrick Williams, the guy out of Arizona, I like him a lot. He's a forward. Put him with Kevin Love in Minnesota. I think that's a nice combination. Now we'll get into the big two right now. You got MVP and our NBA Finals prediction. MVP, who you got, and then who else do you see around in the pack?
I got Dwight Howard, man. I mean, any NBA fan, you know why I'm picking Dwight Howard. He's a high rebounder. He gets points. He gets the job done. He's a physical. It's you know what I'm talking about. He's a great defender. It's just he's an all-around player, and he's a great asset to any team.
And basically the only asset the Magic have left at this point. And he's in a contract year this year, so Obviously, if he gets traded, you don't normally win the MVP if you get traded. But I would expect he'll stay with the Magic the whole year and then leave them free agency. I mean, maybe he'll end up staying with the Magic. Maybe what he's been saying about I really want to stay here is actually true. I just think it's talk. I think he'll probably end up with the Lakers or the Knicks or one of those type of teams. For me, obviously LeBron's going to be up there. Kobe Bryant, Dwight Howard's going to be right in the mix. But I see Kevin Durant. I see the Thunder having a big season, and I'll get back to that. But I think Kevin Durant's going to become more than just a scorer this year. I think he'll be a better rebounder, maybe even more consistent as a shooter this year. And the potential for this guy is just unmatched. I think most people feel like him and LeBron James are clearly the best two non-centers in the game right now. As far as NBA Finals, who you got?
Man, this year, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me. There's a lot of LeBron haters. I'm taking the Heat over the Memphis Grizzlies. And I know you're looking at me and saying Memphis Grizzlies. Well, I'm taking them because last year, without Rudy Gay, their quote-unquote best player on the team, if you don't want to say O.J. Mayo or Zach Randolph is, they lost in 7 against the Thunder. And that's a great team who went to the next round. I mean, they could have been in that position too, and you don't know what happens. So I'm going to take the Heat against Memphis. I don't have a certain game set amount of how long that series is going to be, but I think that's how it's going to end up being.
And you guys know on here, I'm not a LeBron fan, or I'm basically indifferent to LeBron, but I've defended him. I can look at that pick and say that's not a bad pick, but I'm not picking LeBron to win the NBA Finals until... I know the Heat win the NBA Finals. Let's be real here. Dwayne Wade did not play good in the NBA Finals last year. Chris Bosh did not play good in the NBA Finals. That whole team, LeBron especially, but that whole team has to prove to me that they can finish the job. Again, in the Bulls series, LeBron had one of the best playoff series of all time. In the Celtics series, Wade and LeBron were both on. Chris Bosh is really an inconsistent piece of shit, if you ask me. But I mean, if he can learn how to play defense and play both sides of the court the way Kevin Garnett did, or he did when he was matched up against Kevin Garnett in the Celtics series, then the Heat are going to win and probably win the NBA Finals. That being said, I said I have the Thunder a full year with Kendrick Perkins. I think Russell Westbrook figures it out this year. Kevin Durant, I obviously said, winning the MVP, and they were in the Western Conference Finals last year with just a couple months of Kendrick Perkins and Russell Westbrook really being inconsistent and not knowing his role on the team, and I think they're going to figure that out this year. The reasons I don't put a team like the Lakers in, obviously Mike Brown takes over as head coach. They have the talent on that team, I think, to win despite that, but there were a lot of things. Ron Artest was not into it. When Ron Artest gets not into it, it's not usually a good ending. Andrew Bynum seems like he's ready to move on and go be that number one guy. Kobe Bryant's not going to allow anyone else besides him to be that number one guy on the team. And I mean, if I was Kobe Bryant, I wouldn't want to do that either. So I'm not sold on the Lakers. And on the Eastern Conference, who else besides the Heat? I mean, the Celtics are old as hell. And
I mean, Orlando, if Dwight stays there, but that's an if.
Yeah, you would have to have a lot of things fall their way. I could see
Chicago.
Chicago's the only other team, but the Heat wiped the floor with Chicago after one game. If you're a New York
fan, the Knicks maybe because they got Amari.
Yeah, Carmelo struggled big time in the playoffs last year, so I'm not sold on what the Knicks have right now. I think the Heat are the best team in the Eastern Conference, and I think overall they're probably the best. I don't know if they're the best team in the NBA, but talent-wise, when you have those three, and then hopefully Mario Chalmers gets more minutes, and Joel Anthony played a pretty big role rebounding last year, so we'll have to see.
I think that another thing that helps him out is the pure skill by LeBron and Wade and Bosh in its own, that you're coming off this no practice for how long, this lockout. So a lot of it in the beginning is going to be about skill and not so much chemistry because you're not going to have the same chemistry you did last season. It's all going to be about who's the best player out there, and that's what's going to help the Heat a lot this season.
Yeah, and we know the Heat didn't have the best chemistry last year, and it seemed like throughout the year it got stronger. Some people questioned whether they regressed during the NBA Finals. I don't know, but all I know is that the team everyone's so high on, besides the Heat, is the Chicago Bulls. And LeBron in a series where Bosh was inconsistent, as usual, and then Dwayne Wade was injured he played, but he played hurt and really was ineffective. LeBron had a great series. So imagine if you get Wade and Bosh on the same page. I just don't see a way that the Heat don't win the Eastern Conference. Maybe if the Celtics really have another run in them. But 36-year-old Ray Allen, 34-year-old Paul Pierce, I think Kevin Garnett's 33 or 34. I mean, Rajon Rondo is a beast, but
how far can you go with one player? They don't have the speed anymore. They don't have. I mean, they're great players. They just don't have. They're not young. They're not the same old Ray Allen and Paul Pierce. You guys know what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I think the thing to watch with the Bulls, I think Carlos Boozer will have a much better season than he had last. I mean, you can't really have a worse season. He was hurt. He didn't work hard. And there's a lockout, and Bruce Split said yesterday maybe he didn't work hard during the lockout, and maybe that's going to hurt a team like the Bulls. I don't know. The lockout is going to play a big effect. I remember when the NFL lockout ended, they said the teams that have been together are going to be the strong ones. And then the teams that were hot the first few weeks were teams like the Bills and the 49ers, who still remain
Detroit, who hasn't been winning.
Yeah, I mean, the teams that you wouldn't have expected, or maybe you would have expected them to be better, but not to the level they were. So it remains to be seen what type of effect the lockout's going to have.
In a short game season. You got to take that in effect, too.
And I think ultimately out in Lakerland, what is going to happen with Andrew Bynum? I think the best case scenario is you go trade for Dwight Howard, but I know that's what a lot of Laker fans have been asking for, and I don't know, who wouldn't want Dwight Howard?
I mean, if I was an owner, he'd be on my team like in 2 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to build my team around one guy in the NBA right now, he'd be in the top 2 or 3. I think it'd be LeBron, Durant,
you can't go wrong if it was him.
LeBron, Durant, and him. Or, I mean, Dwayne Wade's 30 years old now. I mean, he's still obviously one of the top 5 players in the NBA, but I don't know if I'd put him in that list anymore. Look, the Mavs could do something. I mean, the team that actually won the NBA Finals that we haven't even mentioned this entire video, really, I think that they got hot at the right time last year. They're still going to be a good team. They'll win 50 games, but I think they'll go back to being the Mavs of every other year besides last year.
And really, I still think that my prediction of the Heat beating Memphis is going to be very accurate. But really, if it's not like that, I won't be surprised. It's really a coin toss. It's hard to tell from right now, especially with this lockout. But that's really what I'm going with.
Yeah, and to me, in the Western Conference, with the Lakers down, at least in my mind, I think they're down. I mean, Kobe Bryant's getting older, and obviously all the other reasons I listed. We know Kobe's still working hard because he's one of the hardest workers in the NBA. But if they're down, the Thunder look clear-cut favorite to me. And then in the Eastern Conference, again, I just don't see another team that is even close to what the Heat have. I think the Eastern Conference should be a pretty easy win for the Miami Heat. We'll have to see what happens. We'll be here to cover it all throughout the 2011 and 2012 NBA season that at this time 2 nights ago we didn't even think was going to be happening. Whatever, man. This is the Cash Killing AC Sports Report. I'm Timmy's KJ. We'll see you guys later.